had come to the church for. The group of bandits raise the village in flames and gathers their loot at the center of the burning village, looking quite content at what they managed to gather. Meanwhile, while Casserole inspects the fortification process over at his end, one of his men informs him that the bandits have already started to make their move, and they have attacked and burnt down a village in Liptaver, which is close to his territory. This news greatly disturbs Casserole because he only just arrived from the capital 3 weeks ago to commence the fortification process of the village. The fact that they've already gotten to the Liptaver domain means that they have to hasten preparations because they can no longer work with the 2 weeks deadline they are supposed to use to prepare for possible bandit attacks. Immediately, Pass is given a message of summons to various village leaders, as well as Cointro and Glackage, who are to gather for an urgent meeting at once. While he sets out to deliver the message, he worries that the bandits' insistent attacks would become a stumbling block towards his dream of creating a land filled with awesome delicacies. He hopes that his dad succeed in his plans to protect the village with so little manpower at his disposal. At the same time, Casserole orders the smaller villagers under him to fill their wells with sand and evacuate their homes immediately. Everyone hastily moved to the main village, where he uses the opportunity to separate the able-bodied men who can fight, as well as the farmers who he orders to fill their storage houses with as much food as possible. He makes sure that everyone is given a duty, and while this is going on, Fuel informs him that the supplies would only last for 3 days at best, and suggests that they might have to take their chances by reducing the rations. Pass watches worriedly as the only weapon makers they have work on their craft at such a slow pace. Given their age and pace, he worries that the men won't be able to keep up with a prolonged battle with the bandits. While he brainstorms for a way to help his dad out, he is joined by Mark and Lumi, his self-proclaimed lieutenants who have come to assist him. They tell him to instruct them on what need to be done, since they are supposed to work for him just like their fathers are working for his dad, who has the title of the village suzerain. The thought of having retainers at his age makes him uncomfortable, so he tells them both to behave like the normal childhood friends that they are to him rather than treating him like a noble. He wishes he could just goof around with the other village kids like they usually do, but the menace of ravaging bandits have ruined their simple lifestyle. He then asks the pair to gather a bunch of small rocks that can be tossed by kids their age. Although they have no idea what he plans to do with the rocks, they obey his instructions nevertheless. While they are at it, he also reminds them to be conscious of their surroundings and head back to the village the moment they notice anything out of the ordinary. The pair then begin their task of hurling rocks with a basket behind their backs. While they pick the rocks into the baskets, Lumi asks Mark if he knows what kind of magic Pass ended up with. Mark tells her Pass is keeping his magic a secret because he is still practicing how to use it. Lumi thinks it has to be something awesome for Pass to keep as a secret, but Mark argues that he is still the best when it comes to pure physical brawls, and he is not the less intimidated. Just then, Mark hears a sound coming from deep within the forest. At first, Lumi thinks he's trying to prank her. However, after listening intently, they become certain that the bandits are marching towards the village. He immediately head back to the village and inform the men at the gate, who move to remove the bridge in front of the entrance and lock the gate. With the bandits' imminent arrival, everyone who were previously calm suddenly become anxious and doubtful if they would be able to actually fight against the notorious bandits who have already burned down towns of villages along the way. Just then, Casserole arrives to put their MNDS at ease. He tells them that they must not let the bandits into the village, because that would mean their wives and kids would be killed, their properties stolen, and their holes burnt. He informs them of his resolve to protect the village and urges the men to dedicate their hearts to protect their family. With this speech, he manages to give the men courage, and they immediately move to their various positions while they await the bandits. Fuel suggests that the bandits might wait till daybreak to attack, since they don't know the area very well, and would be at a disadvantage at night. However, Casserole tells him they would definitely attack because the other territories they've raided won't have enough food to sustain their massive troop. He suggests that they must be low on food and strongly believes they won't spare a moment before they attack the village. Despite his explanation, Fuel still thinks that it might be a wrong move to keep the townsfolk awake all through the night, because it'll certainly put them at a massive disadvantage if the bandits decide to wait out the night and attack the next morning. Casserole then asks his smart son, Pasco, his opinion on the matter, but he tells them that they have too little information about the bandits to make assumptions. He explains that they'll need to check how much supplies they have, as well as their numbers, as that would be the only way to determine her course of action, just as it is with preparing to feed a large amount of people. He gets carried away thinking about the matter and trying to solve it the way he does in his previous life, But by the time he comes back to his senses, Casserole has already decided on his next plan of action. He takes Fuel along with him to check out the enemy base and ascertain the might of their forces. He leaves Pass in charge of the village and heads out to investigate, immediately knowing full well the risk involved. Once he's gone, Pass tells Mark to pass a message to the northern gate that they are to use flame arrows to signal the enemy's arrival. He also instructs Lumi to tell the craftsmen to prepare the flames and arrows to be used when the time comes. He also informs the pair that the arrows serve a dual purpose of helping his dad find his way back to the village should they lose their way during a night chase by the bandits. Mark suggests that he could just use his teleportation spells, but Pass tells him he won't be able to take Fuel and the horses with him because of the weight limit. Back inside the village, Pass finds some kind scared and thus firms his resolve to protect them in place of his father the suzerain no matter what happens. Meanwhile, Casserole and Fuel begin their investigation in the forest. He uses his magic to observe the enemy base from a distance. He finds out the bandits aren't just regular guys but ex-military soldiers with 5 good horses. He also finds out that they bandits number up to 70 in total, which makes Casserole conclude that they must be professionals. He also reports that the bandits have taken a number of villagers hostage and surmises that they plan to sell them into slavery. Once they finish up with their investigation, they hurriedly set out to the enemy base for a surprise attack. Over at the bandits' base, the minions report to their boss that the neighboring villages have been deserted by its occupants. As they prepare to move over to the main village, Casserole and his trusty right-hand man show up out of nowhere and begin slaying the bandits. The focus on the killing the weaklings while they hurriedly make their way past them. The leader tries to instruct his men to be wary of the horses, however. By the time they can stay in formation, they've already lost some of their men. The Lord decides it'll be too risky to make another charge now that they are organized, so he instructs Fuel to make a retreat back to the village. The men immediately chase after them even when their leader tries to make them stop. With this plan, they manage to separate some of the bandits from the main group. Over at the village, an arrow is shot immediately they notice their arrival from a distance. Fuel thinks that Pass must have set a trap since he ordered the guards to shoot him arrow. Although they have no idea what his plan is, they decide to pass through another route back to the village. When Pass is notified of the incoming enemies, he musters his kid troops who immediately start raining stones down the path with slings. They set the stones on fire for added damage, and this move manages to halt the pursuit of the bandits thanks to Pass's brilliant plan. They continue to rain down flaming stones on the bandits who are struggling to pinpoint where the attack is coming from. Casserole and Fuel then use the opportunity to charge at the bandits while they are confused. When the leader catches up to them, he decides to head directly to the gate to stop the attack. He dashes from the cliff without a bridge and manages to land on the edge of the other side. Since he managed to make it in one piece, his men also rally behind him ready to jump. At the same time, the villagers at the gate try to attack with the tools, but he simply dodges their attack while he makes his way above the wall. He succeeds in getting through the wall and immediately starts slaying the weak villagers one after the other in an angry frenzy. A warrior immediately comes to face him in a duel while the kids hold back the other bandits who manage to make it past the wall. When he notices THR and Kifs are the real problem, he rushes towards them to solve the problem. He swings his sword at them, but they are shielded by Pass, who ends up injured. The leader immediately takes Pass hostage with his sword on his neck, and this makes the other fighters hesitant to approach him. While everyone is distracted, Pass notices a man who is in severe pains and uses his magic to replicate the man's injuries on the other bandits. They all start screaming in pain with no idea of what hit them, and while the leader struggles to understand Pass's magic, a kid knocks him unconscious with a stone to the head. The town looks tattered with axes and swords because of the bandits' attack. Fortunately for them, with the aid of their very intelligent lord and his son, they win the fight. Casserole sends one of his villagers to inform his wife that they have won the fight. The man gets there, and even before he talks, Agnes asks him if they have won. He tells her that the fight has ended, and just as she expects, they have won. He tells her they have even captured some of the bandits in their prison. She is so glad about that, and she asks if her husband and son are both uninjured. The man tells her that Casserole is uninjured and fine, but Pastry took an axe on his arm, so he is a little injured. Agnes collapses on the floor immediately. Josephine tells her that she doesn't have to worry, and she is very sure that the injury Pastry has gotten isn't too deep, and the young boy will be fine. She asks the messenger how deep Pastry's injury is, and just as Josephine has suggested, the messenger tells her that his injury is minor, and he will be better anytime soon. Agnes is glad, and Josephine shows her concerns because she thinks her father and brother will also hope that they are doing fine too. Agnes asks when her husband will come home. Pastry, on the other hand, is coordinating the rewards for the neighboring villages that have aided them in the fight. He takes them to their rice barn and tells them that it is the remainder of the war, and they should all share it and take it back to their village. They are all happy with Suzerain's kind gesture, and they enter the barn to take the rice. Pastry thinks about himself, reminding himself of his major intention to ensure he succeeds in building another sweet world since he cannot achieve his aim in his first life due to circumstances beyond his control. Later, Casserole coordinates how the bandits are tied and taken to the prison. He commands that the bandits should be spaced so they won't have any means to escape. As the bandits queue to the prison, their head looks around, looking for someone they